Hello, puppies and kittens. Welcome to another Quran lesson for the infidel. We're covering Surah 3 today. There are 200 verses in this Surah, so it is likely to be another two-parter. We did Surah 2 previously. I think we'd had to do that one in 4 sessions because it was so ridiculously big. But we're going to try to squeeze this one down to two sessions. And we were supposed to do this last week, but I got distracted on other things. I apologize for that. And I also want to complain for a moment about Facebook. Just to throw that out there. I answered somebody's question on Facebook, and it was like it launched 2,500 replies, 2,500 replies to my one post. So I've got hundreds of comments from other people coming in, and I'm trying to answer this deluge of comments, but I can't because Facebook has decided that I've posted too many times. So they're going to let this onslaught continue and muffle me or muzzle me so that I can't respond to it. Don't you love social media? Okay, we have the usual crew. Mubarak, Boraz, Talal, Turtle. Welcome aboard, everyone. And
Yes.
Bogi, you have notes to begin?
Oh, yes, I do have notes.
All right,
Can I, before you start, can
Yes.
I have a couple of minutes, something to throw on the Surah? It's very important, Surah number 2. Just
Sure.
something I came across. May I say it?
Yes.
Okay. For all Muslim, particularly Muslim who speak the Arabic, speak the language, when you read the Quran, go back to Ayah verse 50 to verse 72 in Al-Baqarah, Surah number 2. And just think about it, just read it and think about it impartially without that belief of yours. Just take your belief outside the box slightly and think about it. To see that the God of Islam has really puzzled how to deal with Bani Israel, the Jews at that time. Literally 7 to 8 times he tried them, and every time they failed miserably. And at the end of the day, he hasn't told us why all that hassle. But go back verses 50 to 72 when he starts saying, we had an arrangement with Moses for 40 nights. He never made arrangement with any other prophet, but with Moses he made it. And we wondered the question, why 40 nights? We didn't do one day, we didn't do a revelation, we didn't do. And I said maybe 40 nights, 10 days to reveal the book to him, 10 days for him to put it to engrave it on the stones, 10 days to revise it, and 10 days to confirm it with God. So there's a question here, why 40 nights with Moses in particularly when he made arrangement to meet him for 40 nights? That's the verse 50 or 51, Surah 2. Thank you.
Okay, I wasn't aware of that myself.
Yeah, God is a slow talker.
Apparently.
Yeah,
He must be a thrilling person to visit. I mean, we're going to spend 40 nights while I reveal my book.
The 10 Commandments only. That's all he revealed on those 40 nights.
Uh-huh.
That's where he was conversing with Moses. That's why Moses climbed up into the active volcano. Other than he's not being completely sane, but there you go. And it took him 40 days just to tell him the 10 Commandments, to which effect he come down to find his people worshiping the golden calf. And he got so pissed off, he broke them, and then he had to go back to get another copy, which turned out to be quite different. So it's not Allah only can't say the same thing twice. He takes 40 days to say them.
All right, welcome back, Farouz. We're the Farouz. How you do?
Thank you.
Yes. Anyway, so shall we start with Surah 3?
Yes, please.
All right, so notes on Surah 3, Al-Imran. The Imrans, like the Adams family, the Imran's family. That's what the title of the surah means here. In short, this surah has 6 abrogations and 200 verses. The abrogations are 320, 328, 3102, 3111, and 3145. And we've got a couple of interesting abrogations in there, which is not by 9.5 as the usual culprit. But we'll come to them as we go through the surah, and we shall go through the surah. My first note is that, my first note is with verse 1. It's also start with the Alif Lam Mim, which nobody understands. So that's a good start, right? And we will come to this one.
Sorry, we found interpretation for Al-Imam. I'll say it later. Go ahead.
Okay. My first note is on verse number 3. I don't know why the translation is the way it is. There is no steps in this verse. If you read verse 3, there are no steps.
What do you mean there's no steps? Sorry.
Yeah, I don't follow.
Yeah, so the translation that you're quoting in the blog basically says, and he delivered the books in steps. Well, no, he just delivered the book with the truth from his hands, and also delivered the Torah and the Bible. So that's what the language holds, and not there are no steps here. I don't know why the translations say steps. Right?
I agree with you, no steps, but take into consideration people who translated the Quran. Most of them are non-Arabs, especially, and
excuse, right? Why?
No, I'm not saying about excuse. They're coming from background that they interpret to preserve the holiness of the Quran, not to give you the true meaning of what they think, just to preserve the sacredness of the Quran. That's one thing important.
Right, but this verse has no steps in it.
No.
Yeah. However, the translator for this is Abdul Halim, who is an Arab. I just pulled up the Aisha Bewley translation, which I think is slightly better, and it doesn't have the term steps in it. But I just wanted to piggyback on one of your comments, because last time I was on the show in December, we had discussed abrogation, and you had asked me to bring different scholars who had different interpretations, like with names and stuff like that. So since you had mentioned the abrogation, I had brought that. So, and I remember last time someone had said, they want us to debate. And I was saying, I'm not interested in debating because you're not 100% wrong. You're just not 100% right. It's, you're representing, one of, potentially 6 possibilities. So, I'm not going to say you're wrong because you represent one of 6. The other options besides abrogation are contextualization. So the name I brought for that was Muhammad al-Ghazali, which I had last time, but we just got away from that. And Muhammad al-Ghazali had stated the allegation that 120 verses on the invitation to Islam were abrogated by the verse of the sword is in fact one of the crassest stupidity and only serves to show that the great number of Muslims are in a stage of regression of either knowledge or intelligence in our time, and has become ignorant of the Quran, because every verse has a context within which it functions. So we got abrogation as a possibility of dealing with conflict of evidences. We have contextualization. And we have conciliation and harmonization, which is when you take 2 things and try to see if both meanings can be possible. And Ibn Taymiyyah and some of the Ahlul Hadith put that more often. Not that they didn't take the abrogation. Muhammad al-Ghazali rejected abrogation altogether, so there was a spectrum.
Sorry, before all the abrogation,
Muhammad al-Ghazali is on the other. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Before all that, do you really yourself, do you believe in abrogation?
I lean as abrogation as out of the 6 approaches, the second to last approach.
No, let's forget the 6 approaches. Let's talk about very clear. مَا نَنْسَخُ مِنْ آيَةٍ أَوْ نُنْسِهَا. If we take in any verse or we made it to be forgotten, God will replace it by better. Do you believe in this? It's a very simple, very clear. It doesn't need interpretation.
So when I refer to the tafsirs as well as the context, and as well as the interpretation of Muhammad al-Ghazali was that, that ayat was referring to the
I'm talking about
revelation.
your own convention. I'm not talking about Al-Ghazali. Al-Ghazali, he may be with us and we will discuss it with them. I'm talking about your interpretation as you submitted to this. Do you understand what it means, or do you have to go to somebody to tell you? If you have to go to somebody, there's 43 different interpretations. So we're not going that. As far as you speak Arabic, you understand Islam. What do you understand? We all understand. Everybody says God either taking away an ayah, or he liberates it when he found it suitable, and he does that according to his will. I ask you a question. Do you believe that should be an abrogation in the Quran, if there is such a thing? Either yes or no.
Well, see, I take a much more nuanced approach in life, not a yes or no approach.
You didn't answer my question.
Everything. No, I'm going to ask you a question, but you have,
never mind. So never mind.
You're making.
I need an answer for me as a
rules for
Muslim.
the
If
answer.
there's an abrogation or not in the Quran. One question. If there is yes or no.
Abrogation is not there in the Quran when it's convenient for you. Abrogation is always there.
Okay.
And it has been known since the day they started collecting the Quran, which the argument actually flared up, and we have.
Yeah, let's be clear. If there is an abrogation in the Quran, that the author of the Quran has a problem that he has not completed certain things and he found them fit at certain time. You need to change from time to time. Let's be clear about this.
So if we've got, first off, let me finish the usul of fiqh and then I'll address that, because, I was almost finished. Because we had preference, which, Abu Hanifa and Imam Shafi'i used. We had choice, which Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal used. And we have rejection, which I actually don't have a name for that one. But so those, so that's the usuli approach. So when you've got a conflict of evidences, so I think that abrogation may, but it should be the last approach when looking at conflict of evidences. I think that context should be the first, because sometimes some say it's an abrogation, but the situation isn't the exact same. It's similar, but not the exact same. There's a difference, and so that difference is a nuance. But as far as if there's an abrogation and being over time, so there may be certain things where there was a gradual progression. So, for example, there's a debate over whether the alcohol is contextualization or abrogation, and both arguments make sense. But the argument for the abrogation is that it was over time, that people weren't ready to stop drinking alcohol right away, so it took time. The contextualization argument would be that all three are applicable. So, for example, let's say you have someone who's an alcoholic, or someone who just converted to Islam and has been.
I'm sorry. This is a very big mistake to say that God was waiting for them to be ready. If there's something wrong in any law whatsoever, either you stop it or you say, I'm not going to stop it because those people are not ready. He's not waiting for them to be ready. If he's got something to be true and to be useful, he would have said it, God above everything else. So that's something we should not repeat. I've heard it many times. It's an absolute nonsense as far as we putting God in a place that he really need to see their feelings, to see that how they go along. If they go along with the first step, then we give them second step. If they didn't go, how about if they said, well, to hell with it, we're going to drink. Okay, the first time, third time, second time, what would God would do? It just punish them? No, sorry. I mean, let's have other justification. Okay, how about the other verse? It says, God, if there's one of you, it will encounter 20. Well, this is the verse, you know it very well. Now, God has known that you are weak and not strong enough, so he adjusts that to 1 to 5. How about that?
I've actually read the explanations of that, and they were actually two different scenarios, and that was actually one of the things.
Give me your scenario, the one you believe in it as Muslim. Don't give me other scenario. If you believe in something, you tell me about what you believe in yourself. If you're going to tell me somebody says that, so I don't think that you believe that.
Okay, Talal, let him finish his sentences.
All right.
So, now, like I heard so many different things that, like, from so many different angles. So I'm kind of a little lost as to what the original question was.
Talal, can you explain? Did we lose Talal?
I'm there. I'm just trying to say, always when we argue about certain thing, I'd like the logic behind it from the guy who's arguing against it. If you want to refer to something,
he was asking you to clarify your question.
Yeah, the question is, I said, when God Himself says the verses, I'm trying to get the verse, and He says, now if there is a steady fast, 10 of you or 20, they will overcome 200. That's in Badr battle. Then the ayah, the verse next to it, now God now knew that you are weak or not strong enough. So I'm going to adjust that. It's not 10, it's not 20 to 200, it's 100 to 200. So we have raised the ceiling to 1 to 5. It was 1 to 20. So that's an abrogation. They say the second verses has updated the verses. Now the question very simple. Did God has no knowledge of their strength before? If He did, now it'll be a disaster to put people in battle for each one to encounter 20, and no matter he need to be a Superman or superhero. That did not exist. So my question is, how could God has no knowledge before to change that verse to now, well, I now know that you are weak and not strong enough, so I'm going to raise the ceiling from 1 to 10, I'll make it, well, sorry, from 1 to 20, I'll make it 1 to 5.
So that's actually a great argument, though, for contextualization, because with those are referring to two separate battles with two separate groups where some of them would be in common, but some of them would not. So the first, in the context of the first group, it's a much stronger group of believers with stronger group of men and less, weak people involved. Whereas the other, had people who were, weaker in the ranks or new or haven't had as much time in the deen to gather the level of strength and iman. So that one, we're talking two different battles, two different scenarios. So if you have a group like the first, then that one would apply. But if you have a group like the second, the other would apply.
Let me just comment one more on this because I think we're dragging on a bit. No, sir. It is the same verse, the same battle of Badr. However, we have no evidence different battle. But suppose they are different battle. He's talking to the same followers of Muhammad. He's not talking about new group. Second, the verse says, I take it you speak Arabic, okay? Al-an alim Allahu anna fikum da'fa. Now, He found that you are weak and not strong enough. He's talking to the same people. He's not different people. For let's just be honest. When we try to give a justification, just be honest about it, at least, okay? So, sorry, that's not right. He's talking to the same people, maybe different battle, no problem, but they are the same people. Don't tell me people within 2 months or 6 months, they are superheroes. And maybe after 20 years, 30 years, yes, they become old, maybe. But he's talking about within 2 months. So that justification, absolutely not correct. Thank you.
So, I mean, we can disagree. So the things I've read is that, the first was was at Badr and the other was at Uhud. But, because we could agree to disagree. I'm comfortable with that.
Okay, verse number 6.
It's a long time getting to verse number 6.
we got a surah to chew through here.
Mm-hmm.
Verse number 6. Would you like to read it, please?
No, thank you, please.
Okay. So verse number 6 says, and he who shapes you all in the wombs as he pleases. Well, that's not exactly correct, because there are certain things that are already determined when they happen in the womb, and it doesn't get to say differently. Kind of. A woman isn't going to give birth to a whale, right? And an eclectic God would probably make it happen, but we don't see that.
I think where you're going with this is what, my Mormon upbringing, they would tell me that we choose our parents, right? That we have a before life, and but before we are born, we choose how our parents are going to be. And that is self-refuting. I think just about everybody would agree that I wouldn't have chosen these people. Yeah, but they don't have an explanation for why you look like your parents.
No, they don't.
But they have this belief that you would have looked the same in your before life, and regardless what parents you chose.
Right. This is a vacuous claim. It just has no basis in reality. But yeah, I was reading through it and go like, why is he even bother claiming this? I don't know.
So I'm not clear.
Sorry, got a comment to question here.
Yes.
It is he who forms you in the womb as he wills. Let's assume that he really the one who does form us. Would we say deformities? And when we have miscarriage or not miscarriage, we have people, deformity I'm talking about. Would that be him? He formed this deformity before the baby born?
Well, apparently.
If that is the case, would that be justice at all? Before we do anything, he would make us deformed or missing something or retarded or whatever you wish to call the word. I mean, that's a question for the Muslims.
Yeah, and the conjoined twins and partially absorbed twins and all of that.
Spina bifida, which is probably one of the most prevalent deformities. I'm not sure about the statistic. 3.7. So some of the verses of the Quran are dubious, just to throw people off. Really?
Why does it say that?
وهو الذي أنزل عليكم الكتاب منه آيات محكمات هن أم الكتاب وأخر متشبهات فأما الذين في قلوبهم زائغ, and those who are not very strong believers, فيتبعون ما تشبه به منه ابتغاء الفتنة وابتغاء تأويله. So he is throwing these people off deliberately by putting dubious verses in the Quran.
So that's not a fair interpretation.
No, it's not. It doesn't have to be. Why should I be fair to somebody who is so profoundly unfair? Are you kidding me?
So here's what I'm going to say. Like, so there are certain ayat of Quran that have one meaning, like they're clear. And I teach usul al-fiqh classes online. So anyone's, if I can plug later if Anwar would let me, but I'm not going to do that at the moment. But in the usul al-fiqh classes, there are ayat that have one meaning. Like everyone can agree, and this is what it means. There are other, like, so for example, the word lamasatum, touched women, right? That could have three different meanings. It could mean something, which I wouldn't state on a family show. It could also mean just literal touch, and it could mean touch with a desire to feel, right? So that is, that would be an ayat where one word could have three different meanings, where there are others, the word has one meaning, like, it is what it is. So, but some people, they get so wrapped up in arguing over the verses where a word could have multiple meanings. And like, that's part of, like, we'd say diseased heart, like just being quarrelsome or majoring in the minor and minoring in the major. It's like,
so then why does he create verses that are mutashabbihat? Why?
Can I say something here when my turn?
You go ahead.
Okay. First question first. Let's be clear. Usul al-fiqh has nothing to do with tafsir al-Quran, by the way. Usul al-fiqh, it is the ahkam al-shari'ah. But if you're saying usul al-fiqh, you teach how to interpret the Quran, we have a problem. But nevertheless, I'll pass on that. I'll say mutashabihat, and I'll read the phrase again because I'll make sure that I pronounce it properly. هو الذي أنزل عليكم الكتاب منه آيات محكمات هن أم الكتاب وأخر متشابهات فإما الذين في قلوبهم زيغ فيتبعون ما تشابه منه ابتغاء الفتنة وابتغاء تأويله. I'm not going to finish it, but that's important. The first question is, Allah is making a solid statement, saying I have revealed this book with certain ayat. They have a suspicious, they are not clear, and some of them extremely are rooted. Now, do we know? I've asked this question to most of the called Muslim scholar. I have not got one answer yet. Do we know where are these ayat which is clear and not of them not clear? If we know, tell us. There are 1, 2, 3 verses so, ayat so, verses so, ayat so. We don't know that. Now, what he says, why, the question, very important, why Allah, the God of Islam, put in his Quran something is metaphor or not clear. And yet he says this book is absolutely clear as the sun in the midday. Why? There's a hell of a contradiction here. Now, and if he put that, why in particular he put them for those like me, like somebody else, to read them and deny his existence? He will be doing just unjust. So 3 questions I have. Try to answer any of them, please.
Somebody's asking that we read the verse before discussing. We've heard it in Arabic twice. So it is he who has sent the scripture down to you, prophet. Some of its verses are definite in meaning, and these are the cornerstone of the scripture, and others are ambiguous. The perverse at heart eagerly pursue the ambiguities in their attempt to make trouble and to pin down a specific meaning of their own. Only God knows the true meaning. Those firmly grounded in knowledge say, we believe in it. It is all from our Lord. Only those with real perception will take heed.
So regarding to, I mean, I know when I looked into the Itqan of Jalaluddin as-Sayyuti, there, you know, he does have a list of certain things that it's, I wouldn't think it's a complete list, and there may be other things out there that do. I'm not going to make a claim without knowledge. As far as though, you know, with explanations. So like, for example, I used to teach physics, you know, back in the day. And, you know, when I taught physics, you know, there are certain things that we teach as generalities, right? So we teach that, you know, the acceleration due to gravity is 9.8 meters per second squared, which is true and false. It's true on certain points of the earth, and on, you know, when you're standing on certain mountains, it's false. You know, it's a different measurement, but, you know, we don't, you know, teach all those measurements to start. Same thing we taught Newtonian mechanics. You know, we would teach, you know, you don't have air pressure in the original positions. You start within a vacuum. So, and then you work your way up. So, you know, when it comes to trying to relay a message to people, you deal with the understanding of the people. And so you teach things at different levels of understanding. Certain, you know, people at a higher level of understanding would get a lot more, and people at a lower level of understanding would get less. But no, at certain points, you know, just to, you know, refer this to, you know, people would have more knowledge on that topic.
So,
yes, sorry, sir, but physics, the Quran is not physics, by the way. Physics is subject to some experiment, physics to true and false, yes, but the Quran says it's very clear and everything is absolutely firm. So cannot bring that example to say physics and the
your
Quran
example doesn't
resemble each other.
apply here. This is Allah basically confessing to sending verses that are not going to be clear, knowingly so, right? And the stated purpose of having these unclear verses is to lead people astray. In this very verse, and I provide a good example of unclear verses, Surah 3, verse 1.
Yeah, well, there are worse cases than this. I mean, there were places in Surah 2, and I forget where the other ones were, where God allegedly is making the confession that the reason that I don't believe in him is because he has decided in advance that I would not believe in him. So he has closed my eyes and clothed my ears to his so-called truth. Right. So I mean, that's the kind of the same admission we're getting from this passage here.
Exactly. And this is in full harmony with what you said. Like, he leads people astray, knowingly that he's leading them astray. And this is just elaborating on that. So don't tell me that Allah doesn't want to lead people astray, because he does.
He helps who he will and confuses who he will.
Right.
So I've got a couple of super chats that I should read here. Well, one, we got Zagros Ozkan for $9.99. Thank you very much for that. Aaron, here is my jizya. Please don't give. What is a jizya?
This is the money you pay as war restitution or something. So you have.
Sorry, I'll tell you what is jizya.
Okay.
When you go and conquer the Muslim, if they go and conquer or invade or whatever you wish to call it, and there is Ahlul Kitab, those Nasara, Jewish or Christian, only those Ahlul Kitab, only those who has a revelation from the Abrahamic God, they can maintain their religion, paying a certain taxes to be protected by Muslim. It's called jizya. That's what's called jizya. Okay.
Yeah. So jizya is, I would say, is like a tax that non-Muslims pay to Muslims for, who are under the an Islamic nation, for protection, maintenance, etc. And while Talal, does bring up, there is a madhab where that's accurate, but you have to add the Zoroastrians in. But I know in the Hanafi school, which was the dominant throughout Islamic history, all faith groups, pay, who are under the protection of the Muslim government pages. Yeah, so.
Okay, and we've got another super chat for Woody.
By the way, they should pay it humbly. Sagirin.
Yeah.
You don't have to go and say, please, would you kindly take my jizya? They should sit on their knees, as the Hanafi and Ibn Taymiyyah says, and lower their head, and they should pay it with complete humility. That's by the way, Sagirin, as the Quran says.
Hi everyone.
Hey, Diana.
Hello,
Hey,
Diana.
hi.
I agree with you, Talal, because the Muslims didn't kill them, so they have to be humble, because they were so gracious they didn't kill them.
Okay,
Because
I've
they
got
didn't
another.
convert to Islam.
Got another super chat from Erica Chung. This is MYR 15. I don't know what currency that is. Maybe someone can help me out with that. But it says, could someone read the verse before discussing? Would appreciate it, as the blog is blocked in my country. Thank you, Aaron, for your good work. My pleasure. The blog is blocked in their country. My blog is blocked. Okay.
Your blog is blocked.
I think that's Myanmar or Myanmar,
Okay.
if I'm not mistaken.
All right. Well, it's nice to know that I'm being censored somewhere. All right. And then after that, we have Mika Kiom, 99 cents. Thanks. And I think that's we got one more for it. Zagros Azkan says for $4.99. Basically, jizya is like the money you pay to the Italian gangsters so they don't start shooting at your store and your family. Okay. Thanks for that.
Right.
Agreed.
Before we move on, sorry.
One more okay. Nunya Business. Or say, why do, for $4.99, why do explanations of the behavior of gods often make their behavior sound even more arbitrary? It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if I may add something, I really don't like the idea of jizya being referred to as something non-Muslims had to pay in a Muslim country.
Why?
More than often, they were in their own country and they were taken over by Muslims. For example, in Egypt, the Byzantines, etc. You can go on and on. They had a choice. Either they die, pay jizya, or leave their own countries, not Muslim countries.
So we live in the United States right now, though, right? And so we have, I mean, maybe some of us, maybe not all. Let me speak for myself. We have 50 states. Now, some of these states, right, and 13 of them came out in the American Revolution. Others, we purchased, and others, we went to war and just took. So New Mexico, Texas, Hawaii, so many of these things, we literally just went there and took them. And now, people live there, pay taxes. I mean, it's just, it is what it is. It's not
but the
just in
difference
Muslim brackets.
is that the people being taken over pay the very same taxes that you pay. The jizya is different than the zakat. And I will not expect an honest answer for you.
Absolutely different.
Let's not make allegations, Bogey.
It's a different tax than zakat, and it's not even the same in numbers. There you go.
There was
This is like a special tax you're going to pay because we took you over, and that's not
all right.
the
I
case.
think Turtle was trying to say something.
Yes, go ahead, Turtle.
And this is an extreme case, but there were parts of history where the Turks, for example, took children as tax from the Christians. It's an extreme case, but it did happen.
Thanks for the specific example.
We have Indy Ader, I think. Indy Ader Jr., $6.66. Thank you. Love what you do. Keep it up, you nasty heathens.
You're welcome.
Advice taken. Okay, next one is 313, and I was going to ask for the notes.
All right, 313. You want what I wrote?
Yes, your notes.
Okay, so the verse is, you have already seen a sign in the two armies that met in battle, one fighting for God's cause and the other made up of disbelievers. With their own eyes, the former saw the latter to be twice their number, but God helps whoever he will. There is truly a lesson in this for all who have eyes to see. And my note on that was, remember that this story said that God played both sides of the battlefield, giving them all similar hallucinations and still letting a good number of his side die, just so that they could keep thieving from commercial caravans. Also, the idea that both sides saw an illusion that the other side was a smaller group makes me wonder how much this story has been embellished or exaggerated before it got into the Quran.
One of my versions says clairvoyance. Only one of them. Is this a thing in?
Clairvoyance is not.
Verse 13 is talking about two different. A comparison that you've seen in Badr. What happened? You were half of the amount of the non-believers, and yet you have managed to overcome them. So this is a bit of miracle for you, but it's not in number, and God was supporting you. That got behind your victory. So you need to just take heed of that.
Well, if I remember correctly, when we were doing the story of Badr, what was that? Surah 8, I think.
8.
When they were doing the story of Badr, both sides saw the enemy side as being less in number than they were. I mean, so both sides saw the other side as being less. And then not only did they have that illusion going on both sides of the battlefield, but Muhammad's team was supposedly aided by 1,000 angels. And these
2,000, and then God, if you carry on and be good and believe in him or worship him, he will give you 5,000 at least. That's the verse. Yeah.
Okay, so we have these numbers. I don't think the number of people. I think there were more angels on the battlefield than there were people in that case, because I mean, each side had what, 300, 500, something like that, and now we've got 1,000 angels. That should be offset. I mean, you have one angel, from the way the Bible describes them, you've won that battle. And these guys got 1,000 angels, and I'm just guessing that all of these 1,000 angels must be dancing on the head of the same pin.
Yes.
Total victim in Badr from the non-believer was 70. They said 70, 75. So if God sent 2,000, so actually 10 angels or 7 angels versus 1. That's if that's the story was true, more or less.
How many angels can fit in a battlefield?
It also mentions
I think,
the devil.
I think these verses came in the trench There is the two interpretation, because the Muslims were 3,000 in Medina versus 10,000 from the tribe of Quraysh. But God has managed to give them victory. Obviously, there was sandstorm, there's a lot of things. There was no fight at all. So Muslims were lucky at that time. Their circumstances did help them. And that's what the verse more or less would be more applied to Battle of the Trench more than Battle of Badr or Uhud.
All right, another one from Nunya Business, $1.99. Muhammad is an illusion wizard with a nice DM. All right.
Okay, my next note is verse number 18, 3:18. God bears witness that there is no God but him. Okay.
Yeah, so God is going to testify for himself.
Right, and he's going to say, I'm the only one that's God. Okay, now we believed you. Now totally,
Okay.
you broke it. You broke the fourth wall right there. God testifies as his own oneness. Great, and so do the angels and everybody else. As an evidence, I mean, if you want to make something truer by testifying, this is probably one of the worst attempts at it. Really, I mean, come on. Would you just,
the angel followed God as follow the leaders, or they believed in him, or what? Or they made to believe in him?
well, they apparently they don't have free will, so they kind
So
of
in
have
that
to
case,
agree.
their will does not count.
No.
No, okay.
They wouldn't.
The situation here, you could see it is a response to people who have multiple gods. So it's basically Muhammad telling the other people, non-believer, which is odd because at that time he's in Medina, so he doesn't have much of the non-believer there, like polytheist, around him, and he's telling the people that there's only one God and his angels are believe in it. So hear me because God said so.
And who are those endowed with knowledge, and not only God himself? He said, yes, I'm the only one. Of course, as you said, he has managed to confirm for himself that he's the only God. Then the angels, which we said, they do not have that will, so their testimony does not count. Who are those who have the knowledge? I would like to know.
Noxum Volpenhair with 5 pounds. Thank you very much for that. Says, what's this? Another long surah? This calls for an intervention. Have a beer, a tea, and a breath of fresh air on me. My admiration. Thank you very much for that.
Great. So this is going to be interesting. Can you please read your notes on 20?
Which verse?
Verse 20, please.
If they argue with you, prophet, say, I have devoted myself to God alone, and so have my followers. Ask those who were given the scripture as well as those without one. Do you too devote yourselves to him alone? If they do, they will be guided. But if they turn away, your only duty is to convey the message. God is aware of his servants. And my note was, here it says to let unbelievers go about their way. Remember that when we get to Surah 9.
And my congratulations, you're getting the feel of this. You're definitely getting, something is amiss with this verse, isn't it?
Yeah.
So this one is abrogated. It's abrogated by 9:5, indeed, as you felt it would be. This is also abrogated by 33:50. If they dispute you on the spoils of war, on who can a Muslim take, as in taking a woman go, there are certain criteria that you can take. And one of them is the ones you paid their dowry for, your slaves, Malakat Aymanukum is in there, cousins, daughters of cousins and nieces. There is an English expression for that, isn't it? Second
Right.
cousin.
Can we, there is any chance to go back to 19? Because I've seen...
Yes, I have
I wanted to go back as well.
Okay,
I have a comment.
Just a second. Let me finish this and then we go back, okay? And a special case for Muhammad, the fangirls.
Special case of what? Sorry, say that again, Zohrat.
The fangirls.
I don't understand that.
I'm not following.
Those women who betroth themselves to him.
Oh, the given, those who are contributed to be given, to give themselves to,
Yes.
They offered themselves.
They offered themselves. So the
understand.
fangirls.
Well, that's a huge issue. We'll talk about it when it comes to it.
It is. Like, come on.
Huge.
Like, how many wives are you not going to have? And you know what? Since the problem here is that anything that we call the Quran today has came out of the mouth of Muhammad. Okay? If this is a word of a God, then Muhammad has to be that God, because he's obviously making stuff up.
Those who offered them, there is two issues here worthwhile considering. He can defer them or accept them. If he looks at, they said, as the scholar says, he looks at that woman and he does have common sense and he does have taste. And if he fancies her, fair enough, he'll take her. If not, he can defer her, ask her to wait on the list. That's one thing. The other thing is khalisatun laka. It means especially for you. I added, what's wrong for her to say, I've got the freedom to offer myself to you or any of your followers if I wish. So why not that particular added in the verse? And that's the question still. I couldn't get an answer to it.
Yeah, we can go back to 19.
I've got a question on 19. Very simple. Do we understand? I mean, it's really muddled. In ad-din 'inda Allah Islam, the religion with Allah is submission. It's not submission, but that's how they interpret it to release themselves from Islam as Islam. So we have a problem here. I mean, it's mixed. I don't know if you'd understand the meaning of this. I mean, could anybody just explain to me what this ayah says?
I have a comment. I have a comment on that. I'm reading several versions, and as I understand, from this verse 19 onwards, when it refers to the people of the book, it means specifically the Jews and the Christians. Now, in this very verse, the 19, it says that they started discrepancies out of that's the thing. They all say different things. Some of they say out of envy, out of animosity, like being enemies, even pride. So which one would be the more accurate?
Okay, the Arabic word is baghi, which means overreach without basically have any basis or standard. So something, let's say a country invaded another country with no justification. That's a baghi. So this country baghat on the other country, for example. So when something, you exceed your limit with no justification, that is baghi. So what Allah is saying here, that the people of the book did not way from the book and the true belief, Islam, until they got the book and they started interpreting it without reasoning, without justification. And trying to translate baghi per se in one word could be a little bit difficult. But when I read this, the first thing that comes in my mind, because Muhammad is dealing with a lot of rabbis now in Medina, because that's the first thing he went and did. He went and talked with the Jewish population there. So I don't know if you ever met a rabbi or talked with a rabbi. If you're thinking, and it's multiple questions. It's like a layered onions, and a question inside another question, and their interpretation. The interpretation of the Torah by the rabbis is a full library that will take your lifetime just to study. So it's another commentary saying that Muhammad saying on the rabbi that because they had been studying it so much, talking and too much philosophy, too much going into this situation, they have sway, they have left the true belief anymore, so they have corrupted beliefs, which is the same situation we have today with Muslims. With a lot of Muslims, we have a lot of corrupted Muslims in every way, because there is no one that will just take it the same way Muhammad did anymore. Even the most Salafi of the Salafis, they have their own interpretation of everything. So the most fundamental of the fundamentalists have their own interpretation. So they are going on and putting justification, going on in the tafsir and ta'wil.
Mubarak, my problem is very clear here. I think if you could relate to it, religion with Allah is submission, okay? Then those who were given, that's the nearest I could understand in translation, those who were given the scripture differed only after knowledge came to them. So where's the link between Islam or religion is Islam and there's those who, after they received the book, they differ? Of course they would differ because they have to think of the new thing came to them. It's a very natural thing to do. But where's the link between religion with Allah is submission, and then the second thing is those who given scripture, they differ. And then due to envy, how would we know due to envy? They may have thought, they may have brain, they may have thought of old stories, does not come up. So where's the truth of that? Whoever rejects the revelation, then we jumped altogether into new era here. Whoever rejects the revelation of Allah, Allah is swift a reckoning. Can we relate any of that to each other? I can't.
So I will make the connection. The religion is Islam, submission, and the people who got corrupted, their religion got corrupted, are the one that started interpreting it and looking into it. So just submit. Do not think about it. Take it upon faith.
Thank you.
I would read 320 alongside 839, and I think doing so will make things a lot more clear as to what the meaning is. Okay?
Yep.
Yep. Did I hit that nail on the head?
I think you have done, because as you said, we're trying to do what they call a mental suicide. We call it. We try really very hard to understand what's going on.
Yeah, this is how this should be read alongside 839, and then you get the true meaning of this verse. Anyways, we move on to 28.
Hold on a second. The Peruse, you said you wanted to go back. Did you get to go back?
So one of the things that I wanted to bring up, because and this goes back to why I disagree with the abrogation concept, is because when you look at the early history of Islam and how did they apply these verses, and we look at the Muslims did go to war with the Byzantines and the Persians, but there was also a hadith which said leave the Abyssinians alone as long as they leave you alone, and leave the Turks alone as long as they leave you alone. So the Muslims had made treaties also with different nations so they didn't fight with, such as China. And it's part of the reason that there were masjids in China before there were masjids in Damascus, right? So because of peace treaties and trade, so the Muslims did fight some people, and they did make peace treaties with some people, and that's the complex reality of governance. So I think that sometimes these understandings, I'm trying to find a way not to be offensive, but overly simplistic when we want to look at the complex whole. And this is not just something I apply to Islam. I apply it to our country as well, within politics, whether it be Democrat, Republican, conservative, liberal, etc. I try to apply the same thing because I think that sometimes people, they have a narrative and they look for the things that support the narrative and things, but sometimes, there's a lot of facts and, it's not always, that black and white.
Okay. Bogey, go ahead.
28.
Before we move on, give me a minute, please, for this gentleman to think about. I'm going to say the verse. I'll leave it with you, because apparently it's not correct what you said, two different battles. It's not correct what we said, different people. Let me say the verse, keep it with you, and tell us next session, how could this be nothing but an updating? Please, let me just mention it, okay? Briefly. O Prophet, arouse the believers to battle. If there are 20 persevering among you, they will defeat 200. I'm not going to finish it. The second one next to it, verses 66 verse 8, Surah 8, verse 66. Allah hath now lightened your burden, knowing that there is a weakness in you. If there are 100 persevering among you, they will defeat 200. So the ceiling has gone to 5 times as such. Okay, so you take your time and tell us how on earth that Allah, who all knowledgeable everything, has come within one verse, second verse. They're not two different battles, they're not two different people. How on earth you didn't know that these people are not strong enough for 1 to meet 20 or for 5 to meet 100?
So I believe I explained that earlier, but if you need a more in-depth explanation, I could put links in the comments later on once this.
Yeah, please do. Please
I
do.
will, no problem.
Just tell us. Yeah, please do.
Okay, Bogey.
All right. So 328, which is one of the abrogated verses in this surah.
I'll read it. The believers should not make the disbelievers their allies rather than other believers. Anyone who does such a thing will isolate himself completely from God, except when you need to protect yourselves from God. God warns you to beware of him. The final return is to God.
Okay, so note number 1, this is the verse with the taqiyya in it. It actually has the word. Okay, so whatever you heard it in the discussion forums, this is the verse that it says. You don't get yourself ruled or mastered by those who don't believe unless you fear their violence, right? So
my version is a little bit more specific. It says to preserve life, like in order to preserve life.
Right. So you just say, yes, I accept you as my leader, but yep. I really don't.
Bogey, let him finish.
Go ahead. Sorry, I thought you did.
Yeah, because the English versions says they say only if you're worried about them, but my version is a little more specific and is only to preserve life. Like if you feel that your life is threatened, then you can pretend.
My version says different.
Yeah, I don't think the language carries that specificity in it. And the end of the point is this is abrogated by 857, attacking those who you had a treaty with and you suspect that they might be double-crossing you, right? And by 9-5, so no, go out warring against those people. And by 51-55, and that means keep reminding them about this, which I don't know why it is here, but it's here. And then the part that really stands is that do not take unbelievers as your leaders unless you fear for they'll hurt you. Whether it's life or not, it doesn't actually say.
Right? This might be a good time to read another super chat. Zagros Ozkan, $4.99. Are there reliable etymology dictionaries that our panel members and guests are using for more accurate translations?
I use Lane's lexicon, Lane's Arabic English lexicon, 8 volumes. I have it at my house. The Dictionary of the Holy Quran by Abdul Manan Omar is also pretty good, but Lane's lexicon, in my opinion, is like the Lamborghini of it all. And Aaron, it's 1 o'clock, so I have to head off, but I wanted to thank you for having me on, and also and I just want to say, out of all the YouTube personalities, I haven't tried to contact a whole lot, but maybe out of those, only 4 have ever got back to me. 2 of them were Muslim and 2 of them were atheists. One of the atheists was you, and one of the atheists was an ex-Muslim. So I wanted to, thank you for being responsive and, allowing me to come on your show and represent, and, being someone who actually does want to talk to the people, because, I see people all the time leave these comments, oh, I want to talk to the people, I want to talk to the people, and then you contact them and they never want to talk to you. So I appreciate you, and I appreciate you letting me come on your show. And Talal, I've read your books before. You're a very talented writer, and I will within some time this week, hopefully today or tomorrow, upload in the comments the resources that I was referring to.
Thank you very much. We appreciate that you've accepted us to talk to you impartially, and you've at least understood what we are after. I mean, because most people, as far as I'm concerned, not people, religious people, what I say, they look through one little, well, when I would say hole, I would say one direction, one-way street. Once we start to think of something different, at least we can negotiate and understand something different. I don't know if you are the one who want to debate me about the book. Is Ahmed the guy? Are you the one or somebody else? I think Ahmed is the
No, Ahmed. I no longer like to do debates, and part of that is I was a really good debater in high school. One of the things that I'd found when I got older is I think that life is too nuanced. So even my disagreements with Bogey, I never said he's 100% wrong. I just said, there are 6 different ways to look at it. I would just rather, the audience know all 6 ways as opposed to just one. But I'm not going to come out and say his is totally invalid. It's just, one out of 6 ways to look at it. And, I'd rather just all 6 ways be represented. So, when I can come on and, represent other perspectives, I'd rather do so. Like, I'm not here to, convince everyone that I'm right. I'm just here to try to make sure that all the information that I have is out there, and, let, people make their conclusions with all the information, which is the way I approach religion. It's the way I approach politics, and it's kind of why I can't stand Fox News and CNN.
Yeah. If the majority of Muslims think that way and they have this approach, we would be really blessed, by the way, because you cannot just say, let's eliminate religion altogether. Some take it as social aspect, spirituality, fear, curiosity, you name it. I have no problem. We in the Middle East now, I'm in Britain, but as far as the Middle East, we're talking about at least a majority, or let's say a third, Salafi and Daeshi, and so like those people who still believe strongly. If you are not in their line or in their league, you should not exist in this life. That's what we're talking about here. It's extremely important to clarify this very. If people think the way you think, and obviously you have your religion, I have mine, and we agree to differ, we are blessed to discuss that. Eventually, we might get somewhere. As far as I'm concerned, religious people talking through so-called imaginary, and they use so many arguments, which is possibility in the brain, in the mind, but it's not possible or reality. Fine, I have no problem with that. But once you start that belief, jump out of the box to tell me, if you do not comply with this God that I worship, so God help you. That's my problem. That's my issue.
Yeah, and here in Texas, where I live, it's rare to meet anybody who understands that politics have nuance. It just everything is us versus them, and good versus evil, and it's that binary.
And it's getting worse on both sides, the left and the right. Nowadays, and I'm finding science denialism on both sides. I even seen recently a leftist claim, and then there was a study did in Britain to prove their claim. And then when they didn't get the results they wanted, they changed the definitions of the words after the experiment to get the results they wanted. And I was just like, that's not science.
Okay. Well, I don't know anything about that. I don't have that specific example, but I mean, I am unapologetically on the left. And as soon as a lot of people hear that I am on the left, they immediately discount me and put me into whatever other boxes that they think leftists and libtards and commies and all like that, whatever. They have all these little labels that don't apply, and assumptions of generalities or whatever, just blanket assumptions that they lump on me simply for that. They don't understand why. They don't even understand what the difference is between left and right. Seriously. So they think that they are on the side of God and good, and I'm on the side of evil and eating babies, literally. Literally.
No, I know. It's ridiculous, but yeah.
Yeah, but babies are delicious.
Let me add one more thing. I've been on the Clubhouse for 2.5 months. I'm pretty active there and well known. Well, at least we still receive, I haven't, but still most of my people, most of the friends I know, they're non-religious, they have received a death threat. Okay. Now, if you see what happened, I don't know if you've been involved in Clubhouse, people called Muslim go to defend God with the worst curse, with the worst word. I mean, I cannot even really utter them. I have to think twice before I utter them. And that happened almost on a daily basis. So things are a bit different in the Middle East and in the Arab world, and the Muslims who's taking this as they need to defend God, Muhammad, and the Quran at any cost. All right.
Thank you. Oh, all right. Before I go, are you okay with me stating my YouTube channel, or is that against the rules? If it's against the rules,
go right ahead.
Okay. So, I have the YouTube channel for anyone who's interested called Exploring Islam with the Farus, and we cover a variety of issues from usul al-fiqh to arguments with certain people who I feel were not totally representing, all the positions accurately, as well as, dealing with politics as well at times. So that's my channel. Anyone who's interested can come on, and, hopefully I will, come on this show again in the future, when I have time. And, once again, thank you for having me, and you all have a great rest of your day.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thanks
What's
a lot
your
for
channel
being.
name, by the way?
Exploring Islam with the Farus.
Okay.
If you want, I can also put that in the comments later this evening.
Please do. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, please do.
Much appreciated.
Thank you.
Okay, so it's one, as he pointed out. Well, actually, he was looking at Eastern time, so we're at noon now. All right, so it's not that bad. All right, so we move on.
Yes, we do. We're going to 29, and please read your notes.
29. Say, prophet, God knows everything that is in your hearts, whether you conceal or reveal it. He knows everything in the heavens and earth. God has power over all things. But didn't an earlier verse of this same surah talk about, or something Talal was talking about, how God now knows that you're not strong enough, and so God has just now figured out something that he needed to test and find out?
Yeah.
That seems to contradict this whole I know everything.
Let me give you the surah for people to think. Yes, very clear. Now he realized that you are not strong enough. It is Surah 8, verses 66, verses 65 and 66. Okay, I'll read it once more. I read the second one. And now Allah has now lightened your burden, knowing that there is a weakness in you. Right? That's very clear.
For people that don't know it, this is right before the Battle of Badr, like right before it starts.
Does it matter when it came, or whether before or after? Knowledge is knowledge.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying it for clarification for people that might not know.
Yeah.
In the.
Yep. Repetition is king.
We talked about it last episode. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's last episode.
33 is my next note, which is, this is the namesake of this surah. Yeehaw.
Yep. God chose Adam, Noah, Abraham's family, and the family of Imran over all other people.
Definitely did the right choices there.
Yeah, I always had to wonder about God's judgment. Because in these stories, he's choosing, the most righteous person to save, right?
Yeah.
And it always ends up some naked drunk molesting their own children.
Yeah. And this is
I
an
think we need
omniscient
to look
God,
at
by the way.
we need to look at 32, by the way, quickly, if you don't mind.
Let's do that.
I got another super chat to read. Mortanius for €5. Can someone explain the different types of Shias, such as the 12ers, the 5ers, and the 7ers?
Yes, the 12ers are a group of Shia that following the 12th Imam, who is in hiding because his dad was killed before he had any kids. They claim that he had a kid that is in hiding. The 7ers are more known as Ismailis, and they are another sect of Shia. And they even the 7ers split down to two groups. One of them is very common in India and the subcontinent of India. There is a guy named Aga Khan, he is the guy now, kind of the Pope, the head of the church. He collects his money, I think 10% of their income or something like this that he collects. So he's a millionaire doing nothing, and they're very, very light liberal Muslim type. And then you have the Yazidis, which are the Sixers. So the reason for calling them the Sixth and the Seventh they are the numbers from the Prophet. All of those people are descendant of Ali and Fatima. The Ali is the cousin of Muhammad and his son-in-law, and Fatima is his daughter. So those are his kids. Yazidis are very common in Yemen. That's why they are trying to connect with kind of against Saudi Arabia, because Saudi Arabia is mainly Sunnis, and that's why the south of Yemen are mainly Sunnis. That the civil war kind of getting between religion again bears its ugly head there.
In a small word, in a short word, the hierarchy of authorities of Imam after Muhammad either stops at the 5th, the 7th, or the 12th. That's as simple as that.
Yeah. That's why I don't have books and he does.
Yes. Okay, so we had a note on 32.
Yes. قُلْ أَطِيعُوا اللَّهَ, obey Allah and the Messenger, but if they turn away, Allah does not love the faithless, which is not correct. He's saying Al-Kafirun is the infidel. He didn't say, I can't see, he's talking about his believers. So he's addressing this, أَطِيعُوا اللَّهَ وَالرَّسُولَ, obey Allah and the Messenger. Obviously, the combination, he combined his obedience to Allah. Fine, let's we go with that. And then if you don't do that, all of a sudden Allah does not love the faithless. No, he's talking about the infidel. I don't see how the infidel, obviously infidel do not believe in Muhammad, do not believe in God. So addressing them to start with is a wrong issue.
Yeah, you have to obey Muhammad, otherwise he's going to pull a revelation at you and you end up like in Tabbat Abu Yada Abu Lahabin with that. That's not good.
Right. Okay. Just to mention that there is no link here. He would have said, then Allah would be angry with you. Allah would give you less rewards. Allah, might not be quite happy with you.
No, he absolutely doesn't like you if you don't believe.
Yeah.
It's like you're not being liked here. Okay, so namesake of the Surah 36. Please read your notes.
Okay, that was 36. Okay, but when she gave birth, she said, "My Lord, I have given birth to a girl. God knows best what she had given. God knows best what she had given birth to. The male is not like the female. I name her Mary, and I commend her and her offspring to your protection from the rejected Satan.
Yeah.
Am
She
I
wanted a
on that?
boy, right?
I guess the gender reveal party was not a happy one.
Well,
So my note was that everyone understands that this story was made up centuries after the alleged fact, right? I mean, is that obvious to everyone or just me? Oh darn, I had such hopes for my child, but she's just a girl. The male is not like the female. In the vast majority of senses, yes, they are alike, and not just because they both have nipples.
Yes.
Yeah.
Was that
Well,
from Bible?
so-
Was that from the Bible, Aaron?
When somebody pledges their child or their unborn child to God, at that time, it meant that that child, when he grows up, he goes to the temple and serves there. So they become a priest when they grow up. Talk about childhood indoctrination, of course, but the point that she was hoping to donate her child as a priest to the temple, and she gave birth to a woman, so she was not like, sorry God, kind of did not do the deed.
You know, my family baptized me Mormon when I was 8 years old. Look how well that turned out.
That was a huge mistake. Did somebody actually got his absolutorium from the church a couple
What's
of
that?
weeks ago? That they actually acknowledged that he's no longer a member of the church and gave him.
Yeah, a week ago.
Yeah.
The a bishop, apparently not the bishop, because they didn't know me or my mom, and so I'm like wondering if they're in like different Mormon churches, like in our immediate area. But yeah, so they came by to ask because they hadn't seen me in service in a while, because I've never been. I went once to a church in Arizona in 1971, and that was it. I was physically assaulted at 11 years old for saying that the priest or whoever was behind the podium was lying. He was saying things that it's not possible for him to know that, and he's stating it as a fact, and that's called a lie. And that's my big problem with religion. And so that was the last time I ever went. And this guy's on my doorstep now, wondering why I'm on their books but not in their rolls. And I said, yeah, I've told everybody, I've told these missionaries and everything that I'm not part of their faith, and I haven't been for a long. You know, I never identified as a Mormon, and so take my name off your books, please. And so they sent over this guy who I'd never met, even though I have Mormon family here, but I'd never met this guy. And he brings me a document to sign, and it warns me of the consequences of leaving the Mormon church.
And
I
what
laughed.
were they?
I was like, what consequences?
What were they?
Well, he said that I would no longer be saved.
Yeah.
I'm like, there's no hell. There's no God. It's all pretend. It's all make-believe. None of this is real. There are no consequences. But
Have you seen that picture of Jesus? That open the door, I come to save you. No, what do you want? I come to save you. Save me from what? From what I'm gonna do to you if you don't let me in.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm supposedly not on the Mormon roster anymore, although they got my name wrong. But so who knows?
Maybe you're still on the roster.
Yeah, in some form.
Yeah. Anyways, 37.
37. Her Lord graciously accepted her and made her grow in goodness, and entrusted her to the charge of Zachariah. Whenever Zachariah went in to see her in her sanctuary, he found her supplied with provisions. He said, Mary, how is it you have these provisions? And she said, they are from God. God provides limitlessly for whoever he will. So Mary just magically has food.
Well, I have a comment. I have a comment on that. I researched this, and the Zachary's surprise comes from the fact that Mary had winter fruits in the summer and summer fruits in the winter. Am I correct?
That must be a shipping That must have been a shipping mishap.
Okay. Well, in this very verse, there's another one of those very hard to understand statements. all my 5 different versions say something different about Mary. One of them says pleasant upbringing. Another one says grow in benevolence, whatever that means. Grow in a good manner. Another one says became educated correctly. And another one says that she grew with good looks. So I'm really having a hard time understanding what exactly is he saying. Is this surah saying about Mary?
She was good looking.
Good looking, right?
Well, yeah.
See, that's the thing. See, that's the thing with languages, and the words that is used here, and Bataha, Nabat, and Hasan. So,
But even
he
before
just
that,
Let Mubarak talk.
he raised her in good ways. So it basically he gave her, Allah gave her a good childhood, and she became a good woman, physically and spiritually, to put it in somewhat maybe more explanatory.
Yeah, well, at some point, if you're going to be praising a female, then the legend has to say at some point that she was good looking. That translation has to be in there.
Now, somebody earlier.
What got my eyebrows going here is, what the heck is Zach doing at Mary's place?
Yeah. Well, he is her guardian, so he's checking on, like, making sure that she's not doing anything that she's not supposed to be doing.
But
yeah, because that's what you would do with Mary, right?
Yeah.
You check on the youngling while she's praying in her prayer room, in her prayer chamber. Are you still there, Mary? Come on.
Anton, what were you going to say?
Oh yeah, somebody asked earlier in a super chat that what dictionaries. I forgot the question. What for the different interpretations. Now, somebody asked this previously in the previous episode, and I think I didn't answer correctly. I personally don't go to any dictionaries. I go directly to the Center for Islamic Studies, because if I just do it by myself, there's a lot of room for misinterpretation. I'm going with 5 different versions, and there's a lot of places where all 5 of them say something different. And if I just go to a dictionary, I'm prone to be to mislead myself.
You've added your own.
Yes.
Yeah, so I do the same. I usually use Clear Quran, Quran.com, and IslamicStudies.info. And then those are the primary 3 that I use, and then I'll source others. And there are times when I'll use, as you say, up to a half a dozen of them. There was one that was very confusing to me. I had a half a dozen different translations, and they all said something different.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But it's very clear.
It is.
It's very clear.
Super clear, isn't it?
Yeah, clear. I've got another super chat to read. €7 from Mortanius. If Allah boasts about being the best of all schemers at 354, does that make him an evil trickster god like Loki?
Good point.
Yeah, and then another one immediately after that. Stop scamming, man, gave £10 and says Muslim apologists like to claim marriages like Aisha's were perfectly normal in antiquity. The proto-gospel of James, translated in Bart Ehrman's book Lost Scriptures, paints a very different picture. Thank you for that heads up. And then one more from Zagros Askan for $1.99. Etymological dictionary, not just a dictionary.
Okay, the Aisha marriage, I have. It's not just even in the Hadith itself. In the Sūrah of Muhammad, he had to come up with a dream and an angel message for multiple days, and to convince her dad for him to marry her. And when other people, basically, other people from, like, his friend wanted to marry his own daughter, Muhammad's daughter, he said no, she's young, and she was the exact same age as Aisha at that time. So people know it was not right, so he had to come up with this bullshit, as in like, no, God showed me her in a dream, and Gabriel had been flying her around me and showing me around her and stuff like this.
I recently found out that the age of consent in some state in the U.S. 150 years or so ago, maybe there was an age of consent of 7 years old to marry. Which,
Oops.
how different from that? How different from the Quran is that?
Yeah, no,
Not much.
the fact that the it's not the problem is that it's not an antiquity issue. So the age of when you even if you read about the Roman, like what age they married in their late 20s, and most people they got married in their late 20s, maybe late teens, never younger than their teens. But other cases there is an outliers of every case, but then we come to the Middle Ages when really people start dying with a lot of plagues because we have a lot of connection, people going through, and the climate wasn't very good, so kind of people started decreasing the age, trying to get into having babies more beforehand, but never a child, never something as low as 7, because that even defeat the purpose of getting married at that time, because you want someone who's healthy enough to have kids and healthy enough to help you in the household. You're moving or doing it. A 7-year-old will not be able to take kids and milk the cow and cook your food while you're out in the field.
Yeah, I'm just amazed that's not even some hokey old religion. That was a U.S. law.
Yeah.
That's alarming.
Yeah.
And it should be. And it should be. My next note is in 45.
45. Hold on just a second. Oh, here we go. The angel said, Mary, God gives you news of a word from him, whose name will be the Messiah, Jesus, son of Mary, who will be held in honor of this world and the next, and who will be one of those brought near to God.
Okay, I found linguistic weirdness here. Why would the angels tell Mary that the Messiah, Isa, the son of Mary, to be her son? You just tell her you're going to have a son and he's going to be called Isa, right? And what's the big deal? Why are you going languagely this way? This would be silly and the bad omen for any woman to have a child named after her first name. Usually at that time, and I'm not sure if the practice is still today, if somebody's father is unknown, they usually give the child the mother's name. And I don't know about the maiden name. Like, is calling that your child is going to be called Isa ibn Maryam, Jesus the son of Mary. That's her first name.
That's the thing is that it's not just uh, God have told her that He is gonna give her His word. That's the name, that the word of God. It's been referred to Jesus in the Bible as the word of God and the Messiah. And then we go to another interpretation of the Bible, which is another understanding of Jesus being a human being, which we know about before the Council of Nicaea. It was kind of prevalent to a point that even the Goth and the Visigoth were believing that Jesus was a human being, just a human being, not a god too. So that's so Islam takes that theology, that idea of theology, that Jesus is just a human being. That's why it's referred to as Isa ibn Maryam, even though it's a, yes, exactly how you said that
Yeah, but
the naming toward
Let
your
me finish.
mom is a it's a way to refer to bastards, so, or people who are being born out of wedlocks, basically.
right. But
So
this is
yeah,
basically telling her that you are going to give birth out of wedlock to this youngling who is going to be called Messiah, Isa, and they tell her it's Isa ibn Maryam. We know that Isa ended up being called Isa ibn Maryam afterwards. She must have given him a name that we don't know.
I have something weird to bring to the table on this verse. Aaron, did you read your notes? It has to do with what you wrote in your notes.
Okay, I said that except that he isn't a Messiah in any sense, not according to the Jews and not even according to Islam. Muslims don't even believe that Jesus died on the cross, and the Jews point out a long list of things that their Messiah was supposed to do, and Jesus never did any of them. Believing in Jesus as your Messiah will even get you damned in Islam, so this passage makes no sense.
Right, so I found something rather strange in my language, is that because you said he shouldn't be called the Messiah, right? But yeah. I found out that the Arab word, it's because it comes from an Arab word that's masaha, and this is because he touched people and cured them. So I wanted to know what you guys' take on this is. Am I...
Sorry, what's your language, by the way?
Spanish.
Spanish, okay.
Spanish. Yeah, so in this language, it says that it comes from the word masaha in Arabic, the Arabic word, and this is because he touched people and cured them. It was the reason why they are calling him.
I don't.
Let me just correct. Not masaha, masah. Masah, to touch. Yes, masah.
Yeah, that's a different word.
It's the big thing, but masah is to touch gently. You're right. Well, that's what I heard.
Yes, I think Messiah is the Messiah, as they call him, and it is used as a prophet, a savior, right? It's not. I don't think the etymology of this word leads back to touching people for curing, and for that there was many prophets who claimed to have done that anyways. Isa would be a name, yes, but that would be his first name, which translates to Jesus, as everybody knows him, but in Arabic it's Isa, right? So the problem is that when you tell Mary that his name is going to be Isa, you don't tell her that it's Ibn Maryam. She already knows that she's going to give birth to him. She knows it's her son. Like, this is super flawless language here.
I gotta read another super chat if I can jump in. It's just a little bit late. I should have read it a couple of minutes ago, but when our conversation was there, I apologize. Stop Scamming Man gave £20. Thank you. Says Muslim apologists claim Mary married at 12. There is no real evidence. While this proto-gospel of James agrees with the claim, it portrays it as shocking and Joseph horrified, agreeing only under duress and never consummating. I'm a little confused, as I wasn't aware that Joseph was even mentioned in this, because you have the Spirit of God appearing to Mary, and I understand the Spirit of God is not the Spirit of God. The Spirit is, but it's the Spirit of Gabriel, and he shows up as a perfected man to visit this girl in a cave, and she doesn't know who he is, so she's like trying to warn him to back away, and he's being all perfected manness and telling her, no, you're gonna get pregnant, or you're gonna have this child. She says, how can I have a child when no man has touched me? And he says, oh, that's easy.
Yeah. See, that's the thing. In response to Bogey's point, I have like a few things. So he told her that is the son of Mary, not the son of any other man. That's why the angel told Mary that it's your son alone. So technically Jesus is a female. The second thing about the Messiah, it's Arabic and Hebrew is a very similar language. Ancient Hebrew we're talking about here. Very similar language. Both of them are Semitic languages. So there is a lot of words they cross. So the Messiah in Hebrew is the anointed one, because they used to anoint their kings with oil, basically being baptized in some way of baptism, not the Christian baptism, but with holy oil, and that's how you anoint your king. So the Messiah in Judaism is supposed to be a savior, a king savior of Israel, not the people. And so the Arabs heard the word the Messiah, and they used it the same way, and they used it, but at the same time the word Messiah, which is just anointed, it's another word, another use of basically rubbing holy oil to cure your disease. So that
okay.
they did that too.
The
So
massage. Right.
yes, so they kind of, it's one word that conflicted and mixed to mean one thing. So he is the Messiah because he is the anointed, selected one, and he is the Messiah because he was healing people. We'll come to that. Soon.
So do you think this is an editorial error? Or
Not an editorial error, but it's a foreigner word that got adopted into the language and used into the language. So I don't know. I don't know if there is some words in English that they are not English original or not Germanic or whatever. They other it came out from another language and English people used it. So it's the same thing. The Messiah, it's a word from outside Arabic language, and the Arab used it. And then there was third thing that I cannot remember right now. It's about the question. Oh, about Joseph and Mary. Yeah, supposedly in the story, they did not. She did not get married to Joseph until after. So she was not betrothed to him as in the canonical Bible that we have today, but they end up marrying in the future. And no, Joseph is not mentioned in the Quran. That's all I have.
Good. And then the other reference about her being married at 12. I don't know where they get this. We don't even know if the girl actually existed or not. And I read somewhere else that she was 14, but then it depends on which religion you buy into. The story's completely different.
Okay, my next note is 47.
Sorry, gentlemen, may I be excused if you don't mind? We'll see you soon.
All right. Thank you very much, Shalal.
Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot.
I'll send you an email, Aaron, okay, about this issue.
Thank you. Please do.
Okay.
Okay, so you said 47?
47, please read your notes.
She said, "My Lord, how can I have a son when no man has touched me?" The angel said, "This is how God creates what he will. When he has ordained something, he only says be, and it is." And then my note is, sure, God can use incantation, except when he needs to animate a golem, and then he can, and transform a rib within that golem to impregnate a girl. Then he uses different spells. Of course, he didn't need to impregnate a girl, did he? He could have just made Jesus as another golem, or he could have just said, "Jesus be."
And then he's been. Exactly. Why go through Miriam and complicate things for the young lady?
Because Muhammad copied that from the Christians. So the Christian had the story of Miriam, and he needed to keep it in the lore, so he cannot just retcon it.
Now, in a further verse, the 49, it seems like it's copying gospel that it's not part of the Bible, the Gospel of Thomas.
48 to 51 is my next note. Go ahead.
That was a good point. Did you hear that one?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that. All right. So did you say 51, Bogey?
48 to 51.
Oh, 48 to 51. Oh, okay.
Yeah, this is a big chunk.
He will teach him the scripture and wisdom, the Torah and the gospel. He will send him as a messenger to the children of Israel. I have come to you with a sign from your Lord. I will make the shape of a bird for you out of clay, then breathe into it with God's permission. It will become a real bird. I will heal the blind and the leper and bring the dead back to life with God's permission. I will tell you that you may eat I will tell you what you may eat and what you may store up in your houses. There is truly a sign for you in this if you are believers. I have come to confirm the truth of the Torah which preceded me and make some things lawful to you which used to be forbidden. I have come to you with a sign from your Lord. Be mindful of God and obey me. And God is my Lord and your Lord, to serve him. So serve him. That is a straight path.
Yes.
Okay.
So this is obviously, as we've already mentioned, this is straight out of the infancy Bible of Jesus, which is not canon and hasn't been canon for about 300 years already. When Muhammad,
It was?
it wasn't.
Yeah, that's correct. It was like 360 or so of
Right.
when these other non-canonical gospels were deemed forbidden.
Right.
But
So
when you look at the Ethiopian Coptic Church, they kept the Gospel of Thomas, which contains some of the stories from the infancy and some of the sayings of Jesus from the infancy. So we have a connection again that we know that Arabs were doing. They had connection with the Abyssinia at that time, Ethiopia, and those stories have converged with the Latin Empire, with the Roman Empire and their religion, their Christianity, to mix to be this mixing ground of different type of Christianities. Even non-canonical books were kept in monasteries in Arabia that were not they were not used in other churches, and like in the Roman Church. It's used in, let's say, the Ethiopian Church.
You know what's a bit weird though? So we listen to the story of Mary and Jesus, but God has already told us about the story before in Surah Maryam, and in the Quran, God is quoting to us what was said back then. But you'll notice that when he was speaking about this in Surah Maryam, and when he's speaking about it now, he's cutting out some stuff he said earlier, and he's adding some stuff he didn't say before.
yeah,
So it's kind of inconsistent.
no,
Have you noticed
it is, yeah.
that the Gospels and the Quran, they're telling different stories with different details and sometimes contradicting each other, but they're both the absolute truth and the revealed word of the one true God.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
are. You better believe it.
And one thing people who study mythology know for a fact: the more details in the story, the faker it is. So when you tell me that Mary is talking to Zechariah is coming to check on Mary and he finds food that is not from the season, I call BS.
Yeah, I have a jump back to 350 and just let me unravel this here.
Sure.
350. This is why the Bible translation of Jesus fulfilling the Old Testament is incorrect. Note, because of the nature of the Quran, this translation happened only 300 years after the canonization, and the Arabic language remained static as it is. Versus at the same time, the Bible was going from translation to translation to translation. So things got a little bit more to the translation. So it says Jesus fulfilled the Old Testament, and this is incorrect. Read 350 again.
All right.
So confirming to what was between his hands, by hands, as Jesus is talking, from the Torah. So he confirms the Torah, not fulfills it, but confirms it. Right? And to make it permissible for you for some of the things that were forbidden for you. And I came to you with more signs from your God. So this is from the mouth of Jesus saying, I brought you my message to confirm the Old Testament and to make a few changes about forbidden things that are not going to be forbidden anymore. not to fulfill the law, but to confirm it.
And correct it at the same time.
Yes,
There's an interesting super chat.
I know.
What was the interesting super chat?
Shall I read it?
Sure.
Yeah, it's Mortanius. It says, why is that in some surahs Allah refers to himself as we, in some as I, and in some he talks to himself in third person? Surah. Wait, what?
And
And
in
in some
Surah
surahs,
1, in second person, where he wrote a prayer to himself.
Yeah.
right. So the way I understand it is that these Abrahamic religions come from previous religions that were polytheistic. So there was not one God, there were several, and they were talking to each other. And the editors of the religions that became monotheistic didn't correct this, and the we became the royal we, but it talks about like only one God this time. Am I correct on this one?
Yeah.
Yeah,
The we
I-
is royal we.
I should
obviously.
add that was a super chat for €10, and thank you very much for that, Mortanius.
Yes. Yeah. the-
Very good question.
Another thing, it's a very common narcissistic characteristic to refer to yourself as the third person and to use the royal we even if you didn't have any royalty, and to praise yourself as a second person. So we find here God, Allah, is a very narcissistic person.
Yeah, and given the variation, given the variation of references, generally speaking, when he speaks of himself as I, he's actually conveying that meaning that I, God, right? Versus when he generally speaks of himself, like he will say we. But carry on.
I was saying Allah does a lot of weird stuff like this. There's a hadith which says on the day of judgment, God will kill everything, angels, humans, whatever, and then he will sit there talking to himself. No one else is in existence, and then he will revive people back after asking questions to himself. Well, no one can hear him.
Oh.
Yeah,
I forgot which hadith that was, but yeah.
isn't that the TikTok channel? Tell me you're a narcissist without telling me you're a narcissist. Praising myself and talk to myself.
Yeah, I knew somebody that was so vain that she wrote poetry to herself.
Yep.
I hear you.
So next point is 355.
355. Let me jump back
Well,
over there.
before we go to 55, let's the 52, when basically Jesus is talking to his disciples, and here we see another traditional word that Arab adopted from the Christian, because Jesus of Nazareth. So they heard of the Nazareth. So, and there were the Nazarene, which is another group, a Jewish group. But so when Jesus asked his disciples, when he felt that the people around him is not believing in him, who's gonna be my ally, and the word used here is who's gonna call him an Ansari, who's my Ansar, which is very close to the Nazarene translation or pronunciation, even in some in its more traditional Hebrew pronunciation. So, and here again we see that the disciple believed in him, and only the disciple, and it's referred to them as Hawariyun, which another word that I don't think um, I really couldn't find an etymology for it in Arabic to make it, because as most Semitic languages that most words have a root word. Hawari doesn't have a root word in Arabic. So it's a word that is from outside of the Arabic language, used here to refer to people who believed in Jesus. That's the only point I have.
Okay, we go to 55.
God said, Jesus, I will take you back and raise you up to me. I will purify you of the disbelievers. The day of resurrection, I will make to the day of resurrection, I will make those who follow you superior to those who disbelieved. Then you will return to me, and I will judge between you regarding your differences.
Yeah, this is one of the major contention between Muslims and Christians, by the way. According to this verse, Jesus didn't die on the cross. Allah took him back, purified him, and he will come back at the end day and judge people.
It was Judah.
It was
Right,
Judas who got strung on the cross. So all the poor Christians are wearing the cross that has Judas on it.
Well, that settles a discrepancy, doesn't it?
Yeah, that does.
Because I always had this issue, but for people that say that the Bible never contradicts itself, I'm like, okay, well, who owned the land where Judas died, and how did he die? Because in different versions, it says that that he received the 30 pieces of silver from the Pharisees. In one version, he threw it back at them, and they bought the land, and he died by falling headlong and having his guts burst. But then in the other version, they give him the 30 pieces of silver, and he kept it, and he went and bought the potter's field, and then he hung himself. And it's really hard to fall headlong when your head is tied to a tree. So I see that as being a contradiction.
Yeah, that's one of the big ones.
Yeah. Christians should adopt the principles of abrogation. Just
rectify
saying.
all contradictions.
Yes.
Okay, so I have another G skeptic gave 10 pounds, says, to clarify, the problem is not that Muhammad married Aisha at such a young age. That was common. The problem is Muslims hold Muhammad to be the most moral exemplar of all times because he is the best of all. Okay.
Yeah, I get what skeptic is going for. Yes, it is the concept of Sunnah is to follow Muhammad, is to follow what he said, and he follow what he did. And by this, he makes this like a followable deed for Muslims, right? And that's indeed is a problem, because we know better. We wouldn't do this today, and a lot of people, even at the time, would have frowned at this. But because Muhammad did it, now they have the feeling that they must oblige and do it themselves too. It's a sad state of affairs, I'll grant you that. All right, so 59 is the next.
59. All right. That's 60. Okay, in God's eyes, Jesus is just like Adam. He created him from dust, said to him, be, and he was. Except that he didn't.
Didn't. Exactly. He just contradicted himself. 10 verses down the same surah. He just completely obliterated his own story.
He forgot what he did.
Yeah.
Yeah, he will forget again in a shorter number of ayahs just coming up.
Yeah, but Mary is still protesting her innocence here. We
Yeah.
can still hear her voice saying, no, it was the Holy Spirit and he blew in me. And here he's like No, I just said B and B. Well,
Yeah.
come on, she's still protesting her innocence.
Yeah, I saw this beautiful cartoon. Jesus is on Mary's lap and Joseph is in the background. And Jesus asks Mary, "Mom, where do babies come from?" And Joseph says, "Yeah, Mary, where do babies come
Tough question.
from?"
Well, my favorite comic thing about that is Joseph had like a pie and offering it to Mary. He said, "Hey Mary, I baked you a pie," and she was like, "How did you bake pie? We don't have an oven. God did it." So it's the same thing. How could you make a kid without intervention? Well, God did it.
Yep.
And then we have this other issue with the statement that you said that Joseph isn't mentioned in the Quran, but you have this tradition that was mentioned earlier where Joseph married Mary, but he never consummated, which contradicts what it says in the Bible where they have other kids.
yeah.
Right? So I mean Jesus has a brother named James, right?
Yeah.
All that gets it all depends on which religion you buy into. The story varies.
Yeah, but if you have a brother like from another mother,
No, it was the same. It was Joseph had kids with Mary in the Bible. He had other kids, different kids.
oh,
After Jesus, that Mary was a virgin at that moment, and supposedly, and then we have these other kids.
Yeah, it's the same thing that some Christian will claim that they are his kids from previous marriage, and some Muslim will believe in it, like think that way. It's like he had like previous marriage, and even in the story of Muhammad, like his kids, some of his daughters are not his daughters, but his wife's daughter. Because when he married her, supposedly she was 40 and she had 4 kids with him, supposedly, or 5, and one died. But the situation is no one knows, and we don't even know if they really existed.
The only reason they made up this story is because somebody misread Isaiah 7.
Yeah.
And took the word for maiden, took that word to mean virgin, and so that meant that there was a virgin birth to Jesus, and so they had to concoct this entire story out of that.
Now that you mentioned that, Aaron, I have a question. How many Marys are mentioned in the Quran versus the Bible? I mean, in the Bible, there's like 3, right?
Yeah.
The mother of Jesus, the Mary Magdalene, and I think it was the sister of Aaron or Moses.
Possibly,
Yeah.
I can't really remember the other one.
Yeah,
and I don't remember. I've only gone like 2/3 of the way into the Quran, so I couldn't say.
I don't think there was a mention for actually any other women by name except Mary. Oh wait, maybe Zainab. I don't know. I don't recall.
Is the Quran making a mistake and confusing 2 Marys into one, or am I?
No. I don't think that's the case.
I thought it was at one point. I think you were probably reacting to the same thing I was, but it is actually referring to 2 different Marys there.
Okay.
Yeah. When he refers, there is a way of a traditional way to refer to people. So when you want to tell them that you are, Aaron was the priest in Judaism, and he was the high priest, and he is a prophet in Islam. So Muhammad, the Quran, say that Mary was the sister of Aaron, as she is so holy that she could be like his sister. And it could be the fact that he heard that there's a Mary named the sister of Aaron or Moses, so he doesn't know exactly. Because most of the stories in the Quran from the Bible are, most of them you hear the story in the Quran and you could tell it's hearsay story, So it's not someone with 100% knowledge of the story. Because when you read some of them are vague and then they go into weird details. So the part that he heard is vague and then he adds details on top of it. But the sister of Aaron is the fact that she was supposedly she is priestly and holy like Aaron.
Yay.
So just to be clear, for the people watching this, the reason that this surah has this name, the Imrans, or the family of Imran, is because he was the father of Mary. The father of Zachary, right? And
No,
Zachary.
Oh, okay.
The whole tree. I might be
It's
confusing
mentioned
it.
earlier.
He's the father of Zachary, right? And Zachary, who was involved with Mary, according to these verses, he then has a son, which is John the Baptist, who is tied to Jesus. Or am I getting it wrong?
Yes. Zachariah is the father, supposedly in the Quran, is the father of John the Baptist. So it is the name of their family, you may say. So that's the thing. The Quran refers to the family of Amran, and we don't know if it's that like he was the patriarch, the immediate patriarch, or he is a grandfather. Some Muslims say that no, he was the father, the immediate father of Mary, and some say no, he wasn't. He was her grandfather or something.
Yeah, another essence to confuse all of that is that some of the stories for other heroes, some of their exploits ended also got written into Jesus's story. So some of John the Baptist was appropriated by the Jesus cult. And part of that appropriation was where John the Baptist already had an established following. They wanted to appropriate that to Jesus. So they had to have that story where John the Baptist baptizes Jesus and then tells all of his own followers to follow Jesus from now on. And there's a Muslim story from around 1200 of about a Persian, a Zoroastrian, who comes into the Muslim faith. He's originally looking for Jesus. He's looking for Jesus because he wants someone to heal him, I think, or just prove that he could do it. I think if I remember right, he just wanted to see that Jesus could really do this thing. So he found where Jesus lived because, as we said, Jesus never died. Jesus lives in this house, and he comes out every day, and there's like a line of lepers or whatever outside, and he goes out and heals them all, and then goes back. And so when this Persian meets Jesus, Jesus then tells him that he's not the final prophet. He's only a prophet, and that now you coming to Jesus is no longer any good. You've now got to go to Muhammad. So this is how different religions appropriate from the fan base of the previous religion.
Yay.
Yeah, that's the fact. You see it especially in the Quran. Early Quran, we were seeing it again here. We're gonna see it in few ayahs down the line that Muhammad is trying to get the Christian and the Jews to believe in him so badly, because we know, like historically, there were two major kingdoms in the north of Arabia, and both of them were Christians. One of them was closer to Latin Christian, Roman Christianity, and one of them was not. And the one was not a Roman Christian were allied to the Persian, and the other one is allied to the Roman. And about 100 years before that, there was the Himyarite kingdom in Yemen, which is a Jewish kingdom that was ruled Arabia for about 500 years. So all those history, the mythology of Christianity, Judaism was getting merged. We have an influence even in the naming of gods and in the worship practice and the veneration of Abraham, which was not common in Arabia before the expansion of Judaism there. So he's just trying to connect, and people just make up stories, and he was making up stories.
He was expecting to have an easier time at Medina convincing the Christians and Jews than he thought he was going to have than with the pagans. And he was quite surprised to find that they did not believe in him. And you'll see later on as he gets more and more aggressive because they rejected him again and again.
Yeah. So I've got a bigger jump. So if somebody has a specific note between them, 384 is my next note.
84. No,
I have a note earlier.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
But which one is yours, Mubarak? Because mine is 365.
I was gonna say 65 and 67. So go ahead. Let's see your notes.
Right. So my notes on 65 is that in this verse, the Quran mocks how Christians say that Abraham was Christian, and Jews say that he was Jewish. And it explains that at this time, nor the Torah nor Gospel had been revealed yet. But yet the Quran makes the same error by saying all people are born Muslim, even the ones that were born before the Quran was revealed.
No, even worse is on 67. The 67, the Quran says that he wasn't Jewish, he wasn't Christian, but he was
upright and devoted to God.
Was a true Muslim.
He was, the word that used, he was a Hanafi, which is monotheist, and a Muslim. So
there you go, Abrahamic religions. There
exactly, it's like two ayahs from, he was like, oh, you don't know anything, you claim this guy that he was Christian and Jewish, and 2 ayahs down the line, he was not Christian and Jewish, he was a Muslim. Like, the fuck, where did you hear that?
But at his time, the Quran hadn't been revealed yet, so
exactly. So when you ask Muslim and apologists, they will say everyone is a Muslim, born a Muslim, no matter what. God, the Hadith already claimed it. Everyone is born a Muslim until their parents change their religion.
Therefore, if you don't believe in Islam, you're automatically an apostate because you will effectively would have had to leave it.
Yeah, but the ayah 64, it says, all people of the scripture come to a word that is equivalent between us and you, that we will not worship except Allah and not associate with them anyone, and take no other as Lord instead of Allah. But if they turn away, then say, bear witness that we are Muslim, submitting to him. So here's another attempt of Muhammad that he is trying to get the people of the book, Jewish, Christians, and Abrahamic religion of such, to believe in Allah again and submit under his authority. But they said, no, we're gonna keep our traditions and our ways, and we'll keep our independence from you. So he's getting frustrated. We see the beginning of his dislike of those people of the book.
We're seeing the beginnings of the third big battle.
Yeah.
Here. There's a thing where Muhammad went to heaven, right? And there he met with all the prophets. So he comes back, and the people were asking him to describe the other prophets to him. And Muhammad goes on and describes the other prophets. And they ask him about Abraham. And Muhammad says, if you want a description of Abraham, just look at me. He looks almost identical to me. From all of his children. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. Nice.
And surprisingly, he had enough followers around him that looked like close enough to the other prophets that he was basically saying, they asked him, how did Moses look? He looked like that guy. How did Jesus look? He looked like that guy.
Yeah.
And it's in the hadith. He could he was like, and then it's funny that even Gabriel looked like one of his followers.
So who did Gabriel look like?
There was
like Gabriel.
the story goes that it's like someone in early 20s, very light skin, dark hair, and it's like from a wealthy family, so he always wore nice clothes, that he never looked like he, like Monty Python. He's a king. How do you know he's a king? He doesn't have any muck on him. It's the same thing. So he's the same thing. So that guy was Gabriel to him.
All right, so we can go to 84.
Yeah.
Okay, so Muslims believe in all the previous revelations of the book. Lists a long list of names, but does that to usurp them into Islam, as we see in the next verse, which is 85, which says, whoever chooses a religion other than Islam, it will not be accepted, and he will go to hell for it.
So Abraham is in hell then?
Well, no, he gets away because he chose Islam, remember?
Well, Jesus is in hell then.
I guess he is.
See, that's the thing. Like, that's the reason that Muhammad is adopting those people, so they are not in hell anymore. And the same question went to Christians, like, because there's no salvation without Jesus. So what happened to all those good people that were in the Bible before Jesus? Did they go to hell? And some Christians believe that they were in hell until Jesus came and pulled them out of there. Yeah. So some people believe, like, yeah, everyone is gonna go to hell. And
Well, that's true, because I mean, all these Christians who dedicated their lives to God, they've lived chaste, they've deprived themselves of any pleasure and all of that, and all that sacrifices for naught. God doesn't see that, whether you were good and kind and charitable people and you dedicated your life to me, but you went through that kid who claims to be my son, so I have to send you to hell, because I can't judge things. I just have to be unjust. And then every Muslim, same thing. They die, and then Jesus is there saying, "Well, you didn't confess yourself before me, so I'm not going to relay you to God. So to hell with you."
I have a note, just a couple of verses prior to that one, when he talks about adoring angels or other prophets in verse 80. So my language makes a distinction that doing so, adoring other prophets or angels, would make one polytheistic. Is that true?
Yeah,
it makes sense to me, because that's why some Muslims say that Christians are polytheistic for adoring both Yahweh and Jesus.
That would be correct saying so, because most Christians are Trinitarian Christians.
Right.
They have Yahweh, they have the Holy Spirit, and they have Jesus as a Son of God. That makes them a Trinitarian and the mushrik at the same time, because they have a Son of God with God, and that's not okay with Muslims.
And it's right there on verse 80.
Right.
Although not very clear.
And
I have to go.
No, it's quite clear there. You're right to point it out. It's unfortunate that when the Quran here talks about Christian, he talks about the Christians that thinks Jesus is a prophet and nothing more, right? And they think God is one and there is no Holy Spirit. Now, a Christian like this today would not exist, right?
They all think that he's divine, right? Because
they do, and they also think there's a Holy Spirit, which denying it in Christianity would be an unforgivable sin. So that makes a two-part God, at least a two-part God, which would be completely forbidden under Islam.
I mean, the Quran does say, though, right, that the Christians believe that Jesus is the Son of God.
Yeah, it does,
Yeah.
and frowns hardly on that.
Very.
And not only, but most Christians, as Bogey said, are Trinitarian. I mean, I was raised by binitarians, and some of our founding fathers were Unitarians, so you do have other options. But
Yes.
for most Christians, they believe that God impregnated Mary with himself to kill himself, so that he has an excuse to forgive people for doing something. Well, you can't forgive them until they do something unforgivable first. I don't get the whole scapegoat kind of thing that Christianity is based on.
See, that's something weird, because in my country, I rarely hear people refer to Jesus as God. I mean, they do believe he's divine and he's the Son of God, but they say that he's not God.
Right, but there's a point of saving their lives, you know.
Right.
See, and then there is that belief, like in the
You're muted, Mubarak.
You cut out.
You kind of froze up completely.
Yeah,
I mean,
he's
his
frozen.
picture is not moving.
Maybe
Okay,
yeah,
we'll wait for him until until God makes him work again. 390, please.
Okay.
Read your notes.
All right. Although the repentance of those who, having believed, then increase in their disbelief, will not be accepted, they are the ones who have gone far astray. There it is. The same unforgivable sin that even if you repent and believe, God will still never forgive that moment of mental clarity when you no longer believed at all.
Yep.
In Christianity, the unforgivable sin is blaspheming the Holy Spirit, which Christians describe as conscious and hardened opposition to the truth, because the Spirit is truth, according to 1 John 5:6. But if you don't believe that the lies in the Bible are truth, if instead you think that the truth is what the facts are, then you have the same opposition to all extraordinary claims made without any defensible support.
Yep. It's not obvious, but it is there. This is a sin that you are not going to recover from. Okay, 91. Go ahead.
Okay, well, I was going to mention this a little bit later, but in this verse, it gives me the idea initially that it refers to ex-Muslims, like they they once believed and then they lost their faith. However, upon reading further in another language, one of the footnotes is referring specifically to the Jews, and it says how they denied Jesus after believing in Moses, because they're Jewish, and then reject Muhammad. So, do you think this is an error, or
I think
or is it really?
I think it's a translation that tries to read too much into this. For those who kafaru, which means they stopped believing in what they believed, after they believed, ba'da imanihim, summa izdadu kufran, and they really said, we don't believe this stuff, we will not accept their repentance just in case it happens, and they are completely lost. They are gone, right?
So the ex-Muslims.
Exactly, those nasty ones, yeah.
Okay.
So somebody said in the chat that Mubarak got raptured.
Yes. but God didn't like him, and he's back again.
That was me. That was me. Sorry.
Yeah. God is not an equivalent to my power. I have.
How was the weather down there?
It's nice, a little bit cloudy.
Did you see Abraham?
Good question.
He looks exactly like me.
Oh, okay.
Okay. What verse are we up to?
91 is the next one.
All right. So those who disbelieve and die disbelievers will not be saved, even if they offer enough gold to fill an entire earth. agonizing torment is in store for them, and there will be no one to help them.
Yes, this is quite a limited and ignorant statement to make. An earth full of gold is kind of like, do you even know what the specific weight of the earth is? Is it an earth's weight of gold, or is it an earth's size of a chunk of gold? Right.
That's what I was going to say, because it says contradictory things, so I couldn't understand which one is
Right.
referring to.
And what if in 100 years we are mining asteroids and we do have an Earth's weight of gold sitting around? Are we going to redeem somebody with it?
By the way, if that were the case, then it wouldn't be of much value. If there's so much gold around.
There is so much gold. There is the problem is of the scale of the notion of the Quran. It considers the earth's full of gold a huge and unfathomable amount. The fact is, the asteroid belt of the solar system has more.
Oh, you're thinking in terms of the authors, the mere human, multiple authors of the Quran could not have imagined this. They were thinking of a flat disk standing on pillars, and then you've got a giant crystal dome that covers that whole thing and keeps the water out. And so it's within the expanse of that giant crystal dome, from the earth to the top of the glass, that they would fill up with gold.
So we just heap the gold on the earth and that's it's full.
Yep.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes it even easier because you can get that just mining 10, 15 asteroids. I don't know. There are plenty of them out there.
And the point that the Quran raised here is it's a nonsense, to say the least, that like why is God telling people that you cannot bribe me with gold? Well, people bribe you with words. All those praises that people tell God, because he's like, he needs to like make his feeling better.
And he dictates what praises you need to say.
Yeah.
In which direction you need to say the words, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, somebody mentioned in the comments, we brought up a moment ago the flat earth thing. And I just wanted to remind everybody that we used to hear a lot from the flat earthers, last year before. But once they started offering paid trips into orbit, where you be a tourist and you can just buy a ticket to go into outer space, suddenly the flat earthers have, I don't know, they seem to have disappeared off my radar anyway.
Maybe they're
funny that.
Maybe they're hiding somebody else.
They didn't. By the way, they didn't want to board the giant penis into space to disprove it.
Yeah, my last comment on 91 is brings to my mind one of the comments, one of the last comments of the Hedge. Not while I'm lucid. And this is to answer a question from one of his last reports made to a newspaper, where was asking, is there a deathbed conversion possibility, whatever? And the Hedge basically said, well, the drugs can play with my head and whatnot, but not while I'm lucid.
Yeah, that was brilliant.
Yeah.
By the way,
yes.
Is the I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mubarak.
No, go ahead.
Is the Quran mocking the Jews throughout these ayahs? Because it kind of hints me the idea of a certain grief with the Jews specifically, not just because of what I said earlier, but as I researched, there was a lot of Jews in Medina, but not a lot of Christians. They were sparse. They were just not very common. Am I correct?
Yes.
They were Jews. I don't think them. I think there's a lot of mocking of the Jews that happened in Al-Baqarah.
Because, for example, in a previous ayah, in 75, it says, it speaks about the Jews, how they see themselves above everyone else, according to Jewish laws, it says in that ayah. So, it's hinting me grief between these guys and the Jews in Medina.
He does have grief with the Jews, but there's a lot more of it in Surah 8. So you have one or two verses here. It's kind of like, yeah, sure, it's not really after the Jews in this one. But if you read Surah 8 and you read the part about the Jews, it's a lot worse than that. So 96 is my next point.
96. All right, here we go. The first house of worship to be established for people was the one at Mecca. It is a blessed place, which means magically enchanted, by the way. So it's a magically enchanted place, a source of guidance for all people.
Yes, this verse is quotable because A1, it tries to mention the name of Mecca, and B, it gets it wrong. And this is the only verse it tries to mention the name of Mecca and gets it wrong.
Now, my English translation has it right?
I know the English translation has it right, but the Arabic has it the Mecca. It's not Mecca, it's with the letter B, not M.
Okay.
So this is a mistake in the Quran. I think they should change the name of the city. Honestly, I want good for everyone.
Well,
They should just change the name of the city.
Mine only says
that
Kaaba.
Mecca was originally called Becca.
There is no reference to that.
Okay.
And to this day, you know, Islamic countries that have the city, it's called Mecca. And they insist that it's always been called Mecca. So
what did you say, Aaron? Baka?
Yeah, I read somewhere, and I didn't bother to make a reference to it in my blog post, but I read somewhere that the original name of the city was Becca.
That's what it
called that, and then was called Mecca later.
That's what it says in my Spanish version. Baka.
Yeah, it was never called that. No apologist will say that, literally. If you ask an apologist to say, why is it wrong? They don't know. Mecca has always been called Mecca.
Okay,
it does refer to the holy city in 97. So we know he's talking about Mecca, right?
Yeah, I've got another question here. Jojo Freelance KUP, Freelancer KUP, says, Aranra, is there in the Quran a view that the whole Quran is the literal word of Allah? Or do we read the Quran this way because we are told hold on, I'm trying to get one I can read. Because we are told so to read the Quran that way. Sorry, that was a little confusing. There were things popping up while I was trying to read.
I can say that there is a few Muslims, like on your hand fingers, who would say the Quran is an inspired word of Allah.
Yeah, but what does that mean? Lots of people do things that are inspired by something else, but it's completely different than what, I could say that I was inspired by Hitchens, for example, right? And so maybe I would say something that Hitchens would completely disagree with, but this is my interpretation of Hitchens. It's inspired by Hitchens, but it's still my words.
Right. No, Muslims, I can say there may be a couple of thousand Muslims in the Islamic world that will say the Quran is an inspired word of Allah. Everybody else will definitely agree and insist that the Quran is the literal word of Allah.
Yeah.
Even the Druze?
Well, even
the Druze are the Druze are not. Well, they don't claim themselves to be technically Muslims, so.
Okay.
But so, the Becca thing is a weird way to refer to that land, and it could be, and that's only my own interpretation. The reason for it, because we know there is multiple other Kaabas where in Arabia, and there is one actually still standing in Persia now, but that's a different case. there is that cube-shaped temples were very common in the Middle East and Arabia especially. So here's Muhammad claiming to have the original one before everyone else, and the reason it's called Mecca because one of the ways they were worshipped it to cry and be naked around the temple because it's sacred ground. So there's multiple things there, but it's one of the things to do is cry, and Becca, which is cry, is like the weeping, and it's mentioned even in the Bible in the Hebrews, the weeping valley, the valley of Becca in the Bible. So the valley of weeping. So there is places, sacred places where people go and weep and cry, and temples like this. So that might be the reason it's called Becca here.
Yeah, but Becca is with the calf had the shadda on it, so it's.
I know. It doesn't align 100%, but it might be the reason.
Okay, I will take it as a spelling mistake.
It could be a spelling mistake too.
The scribe must have been drunk because at this point the scribe could still drink.
Yeah.
Okay, 90.
Not
102 is the next one.
you who believe, be mindful of God as is his due, and make sure you devote yourselves to him in your dying torment.
Yeah, this one is abrogated. 102. And it's abrogated by 6416, which is, man, I don't know why it's abrogated this way, but it talks about, the abrogation talks about greed and spending and whatever. So I don't know. It just is. So it's here because it's abrogated. Okay. 103. If you want to read your comments about that.
103, hold fast to God's rope altogether. Do not split into factions. Remember God's favor to you. You were enemies, and then he brought your hearts together, and you became brothers by his grace. You were about to fall into a pit of fire, and he saved you from it. In this way, God makes his revelations clear to you so that you may be rightly guided.
Yes. About 8,000 sects, as far as I could check on Google, of Islam. Sure, they found red rope, right?
Oh, but the Jews and the Christians and the Muslims are now brothers of the heart, right?
Yeah, totally.
See, now we need to look at it historically, because in the traditional Muslim claims, Muhammad came to Medina, and Medina had two Arabic tribes. They were separated by I don't know how many distant cousins, but they had problems. They had tribal feud between them. So when Muhammad came, they just settled in from a war, a skirmish that happened between them. They lost some people and people got killed. So he's like, look, now both of you are Muslims. Both of you believe in this one guy. So just stick with him. I don't think this ayah even refers to the Muslim today because, well, it doesn't know about the Muslims today.
Okay, 104 is the next one.
104.
And I like your comment, so please read it.
All right. So be a community that calls for what is good, urges what is right, and forbids what is wrong. Those who do this are the successful ones. And my note was, but this doesn't match any of the atrocities that I see in the news coming out of Sharia countries.
Okay, I have two secondary notes here. One of them is وَيَأْمُرُونَ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ وَيَنْهُونَ عَنِ الْمُنكَرِ. This is the subtitle of the Saudi Sharia police.
And Taliban now.
And the Taliban now, yes.
So, they seriously transferred the women ministry or the Ministry of Women's Affairs to the Hayat al-Amr bil-Ma'ruf and Nahy al-Munkar, to the religious police.
Yes.
They were like, we don't care about the women, we're going to put the religious police. Islam in simple sense.
Yeah, it's a terrible thing what a delusion can do to the human mind. what they consider to be a good is actually hurting people and harming them and themselves.
Mm-hmm.
My next comment is 105, and that would be the last one. Please read your notes.
All right. Do not be like those who, after they have been given clear revelation, split into factions and fall into disputes. A terrible punishment awaits such people. And my note was, and yet there are now Sunni and Shia and multiple other subsets, proving that Muslims don't even follow their own religion. It's just like when the Old Testament said not to add or subtract from these scriptures, and they did both anyway. Then the Christian New Testament did the same thing, and they still did both again.
Yeah, that's the end of my notes for today.
All right. So I want to apologize again that I somehow made the arrangement that we would like skip 1 week, and then I ended up skipping 2 weeks and had no idea. I don't know how I got confused on all of that with everything I was doing. But since we have, this is going to be a two-parter for a blog post that was already written. Can we do this again next weekend at this time?
I'm good.
I have no problem.
Okay, very good, very good. So we'll meet again in 1 week's time. And as usual, at the end of this thing, I'm going to have to bail pretty quickly. I'm going to a concert if it's safe to do so. We'll figure that out when we get there. But yeah, I'm going to go see a goth metal band in this moment.
Absolutely haram.
Yeah.
All right.
Listening to loud music. No. The Taliban would not approve.
All right. Thanks, everyone. And Peter, go ahead and take us out.